Hey guys, welcome back to another video, and in today's video we will be looking at what if a Baltic Union occurred in modern day. So this scenario is not too likely, but these Baltic Unions have had some similarities in the past. They've all been under the Russian Empire, all been under the Soviet Union, all been under Germany during the World Wars. And honestly, if cards were played right, this could have happened, in my opinion. But yeah, today we'll be looking at what if this happened. Realistically, nothing would change, really. They would still be in NATO, they'd still be in the EU. I think they were in the EU. And nothing really would happen except for these guys would be slightly stronger and Russia would be a little bit more worried. But we're gonna put a new dictatorship in place, a militaristic dictatorship that wants to expand, and we're going to buff their military and economy to where they don't collapse immediately. We're also going to be disbanding NATO and the EU, so they get no sanctions from this. Now, let's get straight into the video. The first country that they would probably go after would be Belarus, as Poland is a little bit too strong, and obviously you don't want to face Russia right now. But yeah, so they are going to start to invade into Belarus through this little area over here. They'll also try to invade through the north, trying to make a spearhead towards what I believe is their capital. I think it's like here-ish. So they're making a spearhead downwards, eventually capturing it, broadening their frontier. Belarus will not surrender, though, as they still have a lot of their core provinces. As slowly but surely they get closer and closer to fully invading Belarus, their invasions get easier and easier until eventually Belarus surrenders over to Estonia, Latvia, and Lithuania, the Baltic Union. And looking at the peace treaty that would follow, so we would have Lithuania, Latvia, and Estonia, the Baltic Union. We would have them annex most of the main provinces of Belarus, including core territories along the Polish border. Gonna set this to the correct amount. Like this area. And winding all the way around to here. And this is what the Union now looks like. They've taken all of northern Belarus, leaving only the southernmost parts to most likely get invaded by Ukraine or annexed into Russia. I think the most likely situation is to get annexed into Russia. But now the Baltic states really have nowhere else to go. So what I think they would do next is focus on making alliances and try to do this, but military dictatorship, they're not going to do that. They're going to make one or two allies, probably. Yeah, they're going to put Sweden as their ally. Get that out of the way. They're also going to get Germany as their ally. That's a little bit unexpected. Oh, they also get Czechia as their ally. And Ukraine. And Slovakia. Oh, I think I understand what's going on here. Yeah. So this alliance all declares war on Poland at once, hoping to partition the country. And yeah, so Poland will have slight initial success in Slovakia and Czechia. Oh, what? Huh? Oh, I'm not in the correct thing. Uh, Even taking most of eastern Slovakia and pushing into some of the territories in Czechia, taking a little bit of industry. But over here, let me change these colors back to. There, over here in Germany, we see a lot of success along the border, pushing into Poland and trying to get to Warsaw, which is heavily defended right about there. I think maybe it's right there, or maybe it's just right there. I don't know. It's somewhere around. I think it's here. Um, but yeah, the Baltic Union will also push in from eastern Poland, though this is much more heavily defended because of Russia and the Ukrainian conflicts. Ukraine will kill or capture all the Polish soldiers that are volunteering in their military, and create a huge front against this. Also trying to liberate, that's the wrong thing, Slovakia, as they push into their territory, almost liberating the entire thing. But as you can see, Poland is not doing very well. The German and Baltic fronts both grow day by day. We have Germany making sort of like close to Prussia borders, and the Baltic Union fully cutting them off with Germany from the sea, Baltic Sea. We have Ukraine pushing further in, trying to capture Warsaw and eventually taking the city, but Poland will not surrender. These troops over here will get fully encircled and eventually wiped out or captured. And slowly but surely, more spearheads happen to take more major cities. We have supplies being put in, and eventually Poland will be squeezed into surrendering. Now, a peace treaty with this would look kind of different than normal, because we're having multiple countries doing this. But what I think this partition would look like would be the Baltic Union getting all of this territory right here, and then Ukraine getting this province right here, Slovakia getting this bit of territory right here. We would see Czechia getting this province and this province, as well as Germany getting pretty much all of this. That's horrible looking. Pretty much all of this. And then Poland is left to be pretty much a vassal slash protectorate of, that's the wrong color, the Baltic Union. So yeah, that would be the peace treaty for that war. We would see annexation of this territory right here. We'd see Germany annex this. Czechia, or I should probably call it Bohemia, would annex that. Slovakia would get these parts right here. And then Ukraine would get this part right here. And so far, this world is looking kind of weird. But yeah. So this alliance will be disbanded, except for a few members that they will stay, including Germany and Ukraine. But everyone else will leave the alliance. And I think as they ally with Finland, that they're finally ready for the biggest war yet. This war, as you probably already know what I'm talking about, is the war against Russia. The Baltic Union would quickly and swiftly declare war on Russia, which would draw all of their allies, including Ukraine, Germany, and Finland, into the war. Finland would start pushing through, that's the wrong color, that's still the wrong color, through this area, shooting out, putting most of their military towards capturing St. Petersburg, which eventually fails. But they do put some of their forces into expanding their southern front. Up in the north, winter war tactics are used, and eventually they take most of the northwest of the Kuril Peninsula. No, what's its name? I forgot. I remembered it like 4 days ago, then forget it. But Finland is doing very well. But as we all know, Russia's main forces are in fact down here. As let's just draw in what they currently have in the Ukrainian conflict. I think it's up to there. And then I think they have that as well. But yeah, as Russia's troops are mostly over here, they will put more of their forces into capturing this southern area, going and shooting towards cutting this part off, which is eventually successful and it is taken. They also push more of their forces that were stationed in Belarus down, trying to get and cut off in a kind of bulge encirclement East Ukraine and West Ukraine as they move over and take Kyiv from the Ukrainians. We then get a secret message that was leaked to the public of someone who has been supporting Russia. That so-called someone has been China. As we probably all saw coming, China then joins the war on the side of Russia. Just color in all these white spots. But yeah, this war is about to get a whole lot more interesting. So as Russia pushes more into the Ukrainian territory, up in the north, they're still neglecting Finland as Finland cuts off this peninsula and starts to dwindle down the forces here. And eventually this peninsula goes fully over to Finland as they start to push down. Oh, the Kola Peninsula. That's what it's called. And eventually encircle a bunch of troops that were here, fully encircling them, and eventually they all surrender as well. The Baltic Union will start to push into Belarus. They will push into the southern part of what was Belarus, eventually encircling the troops here, as Ukraine also pushes through, causing a huge encirclement, possibly one of the biggest encirclements ever in history. And slowly but surely, these forces are dwindling down until eventually both sides surrender over to the enemy. Up in the north, the Baltic Union will also be pushing into Russia. Now remember, this guy right here is buffed. Oh, also, that happens. This guy right here is buffed. So possibly the 5th strongest country in the world, I would say, because I really gave them a buff. But yeah, as this happens, Russia does divert more forces and reaches the Finnish border, which eventually causes them to break through the Finnish border and try to do a bulge encirclement and try to cut these troops off, which ends up failing as Finland encircles these troops, and they eventually surrenders over to Finland again. And yeah, Russia's logistics are being sabotaged so much by these things. Eventually, St. Petersburg also falls with a month-long encirclement as the Baltic Union continues to push outwards. Over here, we see them go down and try to push back the Russians, eventually going for a small encirclement, which is a success, and eventually pushing them out of Kiev and out of southern Ukraine. So eventually we have this sort of look in front with a spearhead to try to cut off these troops from the others. Yeah. So, I forgot to do that. But yeah, Russia is losing, and quite badly. And some countries will decide to take advantage of this, including Japan, trying to focus on killing Russia to get their old borders back, and also South Korea and Taiwan. A few more countries that choose to join this are North Korea on the side of the blue team, Mongolia on the side of the blue team, which is kind of forced by Russia and China so that they, we have Kazakhstan joining the blue team, Kyrgyzstan. Actually, I'm going to leave that out. But we have Iran joining them, which gets the U.S. to join the side of the red team in this war. They were trying to stay out of it, but, it's a lot of countries that they don't like and, are kind of losing right now, so, they decided to join. Which will also bring Venezuela into the war. Actually, we'll leave Venezuela out. But who will join this war? Vietnam. I'm going to leave India and Pakistan out of this one because I don't want to get into that stuff. But yeah, we now have pretty much a world war going on. And to start off, this area over here starts to get, just slightly pushed back as more forces start to pour into Russia. We have this entire area over here being reliberated, including this, and eventually an encirclement is even pulled off. And this area over here is taken. We have Belarus getting more and more liberated, quote unquote. We eventually also have St. Petersburg retaken, but that's to the extent of what Russia can do, other than pushing back Finland and the Kola Peninsula a little bit more. But that's pretty much all they do, and now we gotta focus more on this front. North Korea starts to push into South Korea, aiming to take Seoul. Eventually, that is a failure, as the US and Japan send more troops. Japan starts to invade and take over all of the Kuril Islands. They also land in Sakhalin And they eventually, after a bit of fighting, take over the entire thing. They also land in this area over here, and up in this peninsula over here. The United States also sends aid over here, causing a huge breakthrough of troops, causing a huge encirclement and wiping out many troops, and a huge breakthrough over here, causing another encirclement, and a lot of influx of troops, guns, tanks, and manpower has been sent by the U.S. So Finland is also pushed over here. St. Petersburg is retaken. And we have just a huge flat front line going through Russia. We see Russian troops get pushed back as Putin calls for a retreat back to defend the motherland. So we have Ukraine getting fully liberated. Over here we see South Korea get fully liberated, plus start to invade into North Korea. We also see an invasion from China into Taiwan, into the northern parts of Taiwan. Eventually, Taiwan does get defeated, but they caused good enough of a distraction to where Vietnam was able to break through up here, and to where the U.S. could use their superior navy to re-liberate the island. Over here, we see North Korea get Pyongyang has been captured. And eventually, we're just going to say their nukes don't work and they get fully taken over. We have this front line landing over here, finally meet up with the Japanese and Korean troops on the other side. We have Manchuria being invaded by Japan and Korea. And eventually, we see China getting a little bit beaten up as this island down here is taken. We have a huge front line over here open up. Eventually, the U.S. makes a landing with its superior navy, and eventually a huge front line over here is made. We see China get a little bit beaten up in the south. And over here, we see the Ukrainians go across this bridge and make a naval landing if it's blown up over here and start to seize the Caucasus iron fields and oil fields. That might just be in Azerbaijan, but who knows. They start seizing this area down here for all its minerals. Ukraine also, with the help of the Baltic Union, Poland, and Germany, will choose to decide to go further down eventually, almost capturing Stalingrad. And after a long, hard-fought war, a stalemate is brought in the Western Front, except that stalemate is almost immediately broken, and a spearhead towards Moscow starts to form. This spearhead is eventually successful as it captures Moscow, and Russia, with its dwindling manpower and dwindling weapons and tanks and stuff, starts to lose more and more territory, and eventually they will sue for peace after a lot more territory is gotten. They will sue for peace with these four nations and see themselves out of the war. They will also sue for peace with Korea and Japan and pretty much everyone on the red team. Then we see Iran also decide to see itself out of the war before anything happens. Kazakhstan does the same. Mongolia does the same. And now it's just basically China against everybody. China will try to sue for white peace, which will go unanswered, as eventually, after years of fighting, China will slowly be dwindled down further and further as more and more land will be taken from them. Their manpower does wipe out most of the armies of many countries, but that does not stop them from giving a heck of a beating to them. And eventually, the people of China start to revolt against communism and its regime, and also against this very long war that's happening and that they're losing. Eventually, Beijing is captured, and a huge encirclement is made, and China eventually, with a lot of riots happening, surrenders over. Now, in this peace treaty, I won't get into the peace treaty over here. You guys can figure that out yourselves, of what you think should happen. But over here, we can see that the Baltic Union would most likely get Kaliningrad. And overall, the Baltic Union would get the rest of, like, the northern parts of Belarus and this area. Ukraine would get the rest of Belarus, as well as Ukraine would get this area. Actually, I think I would give Ukraine this and have them form Greater Ukraine. That was horrible borders. I would have them form Greater Ukraine down here. We would have Finland restore its old pre-World War I borders, or pre-Winter War borders, with this area or some. But they would also expand further into St. Petersburg, actually splitting the city in half, as the Baltic Union would also be expanding outwards into Russia. Finland would get the entirety of the Kola Peninsula, and pretty much that. For these guys, remember, you guys can figure that peace treaty out and what you think would happen. But this is what happens in these parts, at least. So, if we look at the finalized peace treaty, it would look like this. With Ukraine annexing that part of Belarus. The Baltic Union, I almost called them Poland. I stopped myself. The Baltic Union getting these parts of Russia and Belarus. Finland getting these borders from Russia. It would also get this island. And then Ukraine forming Greater Ukraine over here in this area. But yeah. So this is pretty much what would happen if there was a Baltic Union. Anyways, I will see you all in the next video. This was a fun one to make. If you guys want to see more Empire videos, then make sure you leave, and Union videos, then make sure you leave a comment down below. Like, subscribe, do all that fun stuff. And yeah, this was What If a Baltic Union Occurred. Did you, Shay?